moving us into what we're talking about today, and that is daring greatly, and that is being authentic. Because when we just open ourselves up like that and say, what is it that you would have me do today? What is that higher aspect of my beingness that wants to come forth, that I am willing to step into, that I am willing to be? That can move us into kind of a vulnerable place, can't it? But it's so good. So we are in the midst of a series based on the book, Daring Greatly. Maybe is my thing not in there? It got lost. There we go. Thank you. Daring Greatly by Brene Brown, who is a PhD, and she is also a professor of research and has been researching these ideas for a long time. She says that daring greatly is the courage to be vulnerable, to show up and be seen, to ask for what you need, to talk about how you're feeling, to have the hard conversations. And as we shared the past few weeks, those are so easy for us to do. So easy. And then authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. And how we show up authentically is cultivating the courage to be imperfect, to set boundaries, and to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. It kind of makes you feel vulnerable to even think about being vulnerable, doesn't it? It's like, whoa. Exercising the compassion that comes from knowing that we are all made of strength and struggle. And nurturing the connection and sense of belonging that can only happen when we believe that we are enough. And we talk about how important it is to be practical in our teachings, that it's all about this beautiful experience of the divine and the recognition that we have each come forth as the essence. We are the expression of God. We are the expression of the divine. And we have come forth unique in that. And it's to be honored and to be celebrated, our uniqueness and our differences, our diversity. And so I love this work because it really does help us move into a lot of the practical things. And this is going to continue to move us deeper down into some things that can be uncomfortable for us. But I know that these things are also what can help us ultimately to really be more authentic in our expression. E.E. Cummings wrote, "To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you everybody but yourself means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop fighting. Staying real is one of the most courageous battles that we will ever fight." And that is so true. That is true. And it's so worth it. It's just so worth it. Brene talks about getting in the arena. And getting in the arena is stepping into maybe something that you've been afraid to do, but that you really want to do. Getting in the arena is maybe being more honest in your relationships, going for the job that you want to go for, or just this choice to allow yourself to really take a look at yourself from a very real perspective. So how many of us, first of all, have either had used on us or even used on our children or somebody else these words? You should be ashamed of yourself. Shame on you. Anybody? And so I chose the talk title today as Shame Off You, because I want to help you get shame off of you. And I want to help get shame out of what we think is any good way to create a positive behavior in somebody, because it will never do that. It will never truly create a positive behavior in anybody around us. So Brene says that after collecting literally thousands of stories, she is willing to call this a fact, that a deep sense of love and belonging is an irreducible need of every man, woman, and child. I love that. It's an irreducible need of all of ours to have a deep sense of love and belonging. And she says that we are biologically, cognitively, physically, and spiritually wired to love, to be loved, and to belong. And when we're not, when we're feeling separate, all kinds of things come into our experience, and that's when we break, we numb, we go into anger, we often hurt others, we get sick. There's a whole lot that happens to us when we don't have that true sense of being connected and being loved and belonging. And she says that shame, either conscious or unconscious, is what keeps us from feeling like we belong, from feeling like we are truly connected. She says that shame is tough to talk about, but not talking about it is so much worse for us. And so I think it's so important. I love this work because it is bringing some things up that is something hard for us all to talk about. Because how many of us like the experience of shame? None of us. Never. No. And I thought about, what does shame feel like? And so I thought about, for me, when I feel ashamed, a shame immediately feels like a pulling back. It's a shrinking. It's a making myself smaller. It's thinking I'm not enough or I'm not good enough. And it's an absolute separation from anybody because I feel this shame. And certainly, you can see it in your in your body. And then it comes out as defensiveness and anger and judgment and things like that. So shame does keep us small. It keeps us resentful and afraid. And I love this because she said in shame-prone cultures where leaders and administrators, where they try to control behavior with shame, that never, ever, 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 ever works. That when they try to connect people's self-worth to what it is that they're producing, or that end result, that she sees disengagement, blame, gossip, stagnation, favoritism, and a total famine of creativity and innovation. Shame does not work. It does not work. And I just want to say that so clearly. Shame is not working. It is only causing people to feel smaller and to feel separated. And we know that when that happens, good negative stuff comes out. Maybe, but negative things, come out of that. So she says that there's a couple ways for us to think about shame. And one of those ways is that shame is the fear of disconnection. And, connection along with love and belonging is really why we are here. And, that's really what gives our lives purpose is, like this, like being together, coming together. It's your family dynamic. It's your friend dynamic. It's your partnership dynamic. It's your work relationship dynamic. We love, that's our purpose. We love to be connected and we love to feel like we belong. Now, she has another book called The Gifts of Imperfection. Fantastic book. We did that in our first Soulful Saturday series. And she says that a sense of worthiness, and I want you to hear this, inspires us to be vulnerable and share openly and persevere. A sense of worthiness actually inspires us to be vulnerable. And, we may kind of look at that and go, whoa, I hope that when I'm worthy, I don't have to do vulnerability. And yeah, that's what worthiness is. It's stepping into allowing ourselves to be seen, allowing ourselves to be loved for who we are and for what we have come forth to give. And worthiness gives that. And shame keeps that away from us, convincing us that if we tell our stories, we're not going to be accepted. We're not going to be liked. That if people know the truth about who we are, where we come from, what we believe, how much we might be struggling, we're afraid to tell those stories. And I've really found it in our kind of a thought, in our new thought, and I see this often enough that we'll use words with each other or sentences with each other like, you shouldn't have that negative thought. If you were doing it differently, you would have a different experience. Or, I can't believe you did that. You're a unity person and you're not living up to your unity principles. I'm going to tell you right now, shame, 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 shame. That's all shame. That's all putting shame on somebody, because then we start to feel like we're not spiritually doing it good enough. And the last thing I know that any of us want to do is to give somebody something that helps them to become smaller. You know, we want to be giving things and supporting each other and becoming more of who we came here to be. So really be aware of the words that we're speaking to each other that that can feel shaming. You know, I've had to work with this in ministry, and I have worked a lot with it. This is, as you know, been my journey, has been my authenticity. And just recently, I had somebody come in and talk to me about something, and their words were, "You're the spiritual leader, you're the minister," and they went on with their sentence as if, so you're the one who should be showing up like this. And the really great thing about that was that I've done work on that kind of stuff, and I didn't take it personally. And I didn't feel diminished by it. I was able to really be there and listen, because I think it's important to hear what somebody's saying and to discern, was this valid for me or not? But I didn't have to make the person wrong. And so this work really makes a difference. It really makes a difference in all of our relationships and any interactions that we have with each other. So, and also, you know how else we feel shame? Sometimes we feel shame when we are soaring, when our life is going great, and we are around others who maybe they're struggling some. You know, sometimes we feel ashamed of sharing, you know, how great life is. So it's interesting to look at that. So 12 shame categories. See if you relate to any of these. Appearance and body image, money and work, motherhood, fatherhood, family, parenting, mental and physical health, addiction, sex, aging, religion, surviving trauma, being stereotyped or labeled. Anybody relate to any of those in their life? And yes, I did keep the word sex in there. In the church. I just want you to know that. I kept it because it's relevant. No. Examples of shame. We're moving on. Examples of shame. Shame is getting laid off and having to tell my pregnant wife. Shame is having someone ask me, when are you due when I'm not pregnant? Shame is hiding the fact that I'm in recovery. It's raging at my kids. It's bankruptcy. It's my boss calling me an idiot in front of my client. It's my DUI. It's flunking out of school twice. And I know that even as we hear those, we have in our own minds some of the experiences that we have had in our lives that we have felt very shamed by. And what Brene tells us is that shame is real pain. This isn't just an emotional thing. It brings pain into our bodies. It's that big of an experience. And that's why we want to get a hold of it. We want to look at this honestly, and we want to find ways that we can tell shame to get behind me. Okay, so she talks about shame resilience, and I love this. So, like, we get out there and we let ourselves be who we are, or we go and we try something, and she says shame resilience, if something doesn't necessarily go the way we wanted it or whatever, is we can say this hurts, this is disappointing, maybe even devastating. But success and recognition and approval are not the values that drive me. My value is courage, and I was just courageous. You can move on, shame. And that's what we want to do. We want to become awake and aware enough that we can tell it. You can move on because you have no place here. You have no power in my life anymore, so just get out of here. And we're going to have to become very aware of how it shows up for us. And then I love because she talks about shame and guilt. And I've always been the one, no guilt, no guilt, no guilt. And then I read this, and it gave me a little bit of a different a thought about it. And that's what I love about this stuff is we reserve the right to change our mind and continue to grow and expand. So the difference between shame and guilt is best understood as I am bad and I did something bad. And so guilt says I did something bad. Shame says I am bad. Total difference. Where guilt can sometimes, and it's not even that I did something bad, but maybe I just didn't do something that I really wanted to do. But what guilt can do is guilt can just show up and say, oh, well, maybe I can choose to do that differently. But shame doesn't even give you that option because shame says you're bad, you're not enough. And it takes down your whole being. Can you see that huge difference there? That's a huge difference in that. And when we put ourselves out there and we think that our value, our worthiness depends on what somebody else's opinion is about who we are, about what we do, then we are handing over our self-worth to what people think. And let me ask you, how's that been working for you? Not so much, right? Not so much. And I really believe that we live in a culture that just so supports that, and we talked about this before. Well, we'll talk about it again, but, for men and women and how we're supposed to show up and who we're supposed to be, that is not even authentic to our beingness. And so it's just so important to look at this. So she says that shame resilience is the ability to practice authenticity when we experience shame, to move through the experience without sacrificing our values, and to come out on the other side of shame. So it was interesting because last night, most of you know I'm taking guitar lessons. I've been doing that for about a little over a year. And it's important to me to practice. But I didn't get to go to my lesson last week, and so this Tuesday is going to be 2 weeks. And so I'm working on this talk last night. This is what always cracks me up, these things that happen. So I'm working on my talk at home, and my guitar is sitting in the corner still in its case, meaning I have not practiced at all yet in almost 2 weeks. And so I walk by it, and I really want to practice, but I really need to work on my talk. And so I, get up, do something, I really want to practice. And then I finally realized I'm not going to practice tonight. I really just want to focus on this. And I immediately went into this. I'm just going to have to go in and just say to Darcy, I'm so sorry. I didn't practice this week. So I want you to look at my body. The great thing is, because I've been working on this shame resilient stuff, and it couldn't have been at all that I was immersed in the material, that, boom, all of a sudden this thing came up and said, whoa, that is shame. And is that where I want to live? No. And I really was able to tap into everything that just happened, just like that. So I'm like, oh, shame, get out. And what I was able to just go to was that when I go in to see Darcy this week, I'm going to say, Darcy, I didn't get to practice this week. I'm going to try to do better next week, period. I'm not going to go in like this. Oh, bad me. I'm going to go in like this. And the reason I tell you that is because I want you to see how quickly it can come up. I want you to become so hyper aware that you catch it in those moments, because you see your body changing. You can feel yourself stepping back from your own worthiness. And I want you to be so hyper aware of that you step up and say, get out, because you have no power. You have no place in my life at all here. And you need to get behind me. And so it's that important. Now, I want to share with you some things that Brene says about men and women. She said that what she's come to believe about men and women now that she's studied both is that men and women are equally affected by shame. The messages and expectations that fuel shame are most definitely organized by gender, but the experience of shame is universal and deeply human. So let me share with you first some of the things that she said that the women, what we feel shame about, and see if you resonate with it is. Look perfect, be perfect, do perfect. Anything then less is shaming. Being judged by other mothers. Being exposed, the flawed parts of yourself that you want to hide from everyone or reveal. No matter what I achieve or how far I've come, and what all I've survived, will always keep me from feeling like I'm good enough. Even though everyone knows that there's no way to do it all, everyone still expects it. Shame is when you can't pull off looking like it's under control. Never enough at home, never enough at work, never enough in bed, never enough with my parents. Shame is never enough. And how about this one, girls? No seat at the cool table. The pretty girls are laughing. These are very, very real. And she said that the number one, though, came down to looks. And of course it does. Look at our society. Look at what we're shown all the time is what is beauty. We're being shown people that don't even exist because they're so airbrushed. And we think, God, that's what beauty is. That's what my husband or partner or wife wants me to look like. And so that's very real. Now, men, I really want you to hear this. So she was doing a talk, and she said that after the talk, this man and his wife and his daughters came up, and the wife and the daughters went off to the side. And he said, so what about men and shame? And she just, shot back, I only study women and shame. And he said, well, that's convenient. And so this is what he said. His eyes welled up in tears, and he said, we have shame, deep shame. But when we reach out and share our stories, we get the emotional poop beat out of us. Before you say anything about those mean coaches, bosses, brothers, and fathers being the only ones, and he pointed to the back of the room to his wife and daughters, and he said, my wife and daughters, the ones you signed all of those books for, they'd rather see me die on top of my white horse than watch me fall off. You say you want us to be vulnerable and real, but come on, you can't stand it. It makes you sick to see us like that. Very interesting, isn't it? And very real. And I want this to be that real, that not just if we're in, a heterosexual relationship, any partnership, any friendship, whatever it is, but I think, especially for men, that we do have this cultural thing that we like our men to be on the, they're there and they're on the white horses. And at the same time we say, honey, I want you to tell me what you're really thinking, what you're really feeling. And then they tell us, and then it's like, oh, get back up on that white horse. I liked you better there. And and it's so unfair. And the thing that comes for me in that is that we have to be good partners. Again, whether it's a friendship, a relationship, whatever it is, we can't just say to somebody, I want you to tell me what you're thinking and feeling, please. And then you create the safe space for them. And you let them know that you love them no matter what. And that helps them to be able to be more real and authentic. Through my life and through my different relationships, I got more real as time went on. And I know, with Paul, he knows I'm very authentic in my expression. And, but I can go to him with anything, and I will still get that heartbeat like, oh, and it's not even a big deal, but what's happening is I'm being vulnerable. But I can go to him and say, this is on my heart, this is on my mind. And he just has a safe space for me there. And what I know is our relationship is the most real relationship that I've ever had, because we've both worked on that. And it's just so important in relationships. Let me share with you some of the ways men experience shame. Shame is failure at work, on the football field, in your marriage, in bed, with money, with your children. It doesn't matter. Shame is failure. Shame is a sense of being defective. Shame happens when people think you're soft. It's degrading and shaming to be seen as anything but tough. Revealing any weakness is shaming. Essentially, shame is weakness. Showing fear is shameful. You can't show fear. You can't be afraid no matter what. Shame is being seen as the guy you can shove up against the lockers. And our worst fear is being criticized or ridiculed. Either one of those is extremely shaming. And she said, basically, men live under the pressure of one relenting message: do not be perceived as weak. Wow. And if we want to really live what we talk about every week in our mission, and that is to encourage us and inspire us, through spiritual and personal growth, to be authentically all that we came here to be, my friends, we have to start being authentic ourselves, but we also have to start creating the space for those around us to be authentic. Please hear me. I am not saying that you should go to the grocery store today and just go up to somebody and say, hi, my name is Sue, and I got to tell you my shame story. It's not about that. It's not about just blurting things out. It's about finding those safe places where you can start to just let yourself be seen, or being that person or people who will hold the space for somebody who is ready to be seen. Because I'm going to tell you, the best relationships in your life are the ones that are real, are the ones in which you are vulnerable, are the ones in which you can know that these people are not going anywhere because they see you and they love you. And this all does come down to worthiness. It comes down to, I am enough. It comes down to recognizing that you and I, we are amazing, magnificent, brilliant expressions of God. I mean, how could we not feel our worth as that? We are God expressing. I'm not all that God is, but all that I am is God. Woo-hoo! Wow. That's pretty magnificent, isn't it? That's pretty much a place where you can say, I am enough. Yes? Yes. And so we've got to start owning that and knowing that the unique beings that each of us were created to be are needed. And we are needed to be seen in our authenticity. So we're going to close with an affirmation. And this is actually the last few weeks' affirmations all together. So I'm going to invite us to say this together. Ready? I am enough. I bravely open myself to life and love. I allow myself to be seen and celebrate who I am. And I celebrate who you are as well. And namaste. Namaste.